Thank you for joining me. Today, I am going to be doing a solo podcast discussing how to go from busy to better, how to innovate without overwhelming your schedule on the OI show. Friends, this is Dave Kading. Before we get into the show, I wanted to thank Team for supporting the podcast. If you're not aware, Team is a virtual staffing and agency which helps connect virtual teams to your practice. I don't know about you, but I had a harder and harder time finding people to come in and join me in the in-office staff. And so over the last 2 years, we've found 10 virtual people to become part of our team. They do things like answer the phone, they help with billing insurance, they check for documentation before it comes in, they scribe in the exam room, they can order contact lenses, and the list goes on. We've been able to work with several agencies over the years, but we have found that Team has been the most effective at ensuring that our virtual employees get paid, stay on time, and that we're following up with them and making sure that they're a great agency for these people. If you are ever interested in considering a virtual employee into your office, I'd love to chat with you. But also, I wanted to let you know that Team is offering a $250 discount when you first sign up with them. Check out hireteam.com, hireteem.com for a $250 discount, or see the show notes below for a link that will get you to the website. Thanks to Team for supporting the OI show, and thanks to you for being a listener. Thank you for joining me. I'm excited to chat with you a little bit today about something that's been on the forefront of my mind, and that is that I hear so many clinicians telling me I can't do specialty contact lenses. I can't do dry eye. I can't do IPL. I can't do myopia management. I can't bring in thermal pulsation because I'm just too busy. My practice is too busy. I would need to wait until it slows down to be able to do these innovative things that I want to do and I'm set up to do. I just don't have the schedule for it. So a couple of interesting things about this is that it just leads your practice down a road that I don't think you really want to go to. There's a couple reasons why we don't bring innovation into our practice. One is the fear that new technologies won't pay for themselves. I don't want to bring this in because I'm too busy, or I don't know if I'll be able to afford it. And by and large, the people who bring in technologies so that they can afford it are probably not going to be able to do it. People who bring in innovations because it's going to help their practice or help their patients, they'll get it paid for, no question about it. But if you're just doing it for the pay for itself, you're probably not sold onto that innovation and that technology like you should be for its clinical benefit. And so you may not be recommending it like you should be. By and large, if you have an innovation that you're seeing in your patients, they need this, I need to be doing this. Let's just get that around the corner and pass it by. Your patients will pay. You will pay for the technology. You're in this industry to be able to make a difference for patients, and that with technology will pay for itself. The second reason, and I hear this so often, is that my schedule is too busy. I don't have time to implement this new innovation into my practice. I hear some of the busiest practices in the country who are doing 30, 40, 50 eye exams a day. They're encountering an exorbitant number of patients, and they say, you know what, I can't do this. I don't know where I'd fit it into my schedule. And I'd like to address that. So, first of all, if we don't bring innovation into our practice, it's going to have an important impact on your practice. Number one, you're going to have lower patient satisfaction and worse outcomes because you're not innovating and bringing something new in for your practice. You're also going to have loss of the patients who are the very patients that you want to see, the ones that are spending money in your practice because you've innovated in the past. Those patients with the higher insurance, benefits because they work for different technology companies and they already are innovative in their innovations and their technologies that they use in their everyday life. If you're not innovating, they're going to leave and go find somebody else that's doing so. And then it's going to bring a stagnation to your practice. That stagnation is going to be that you're just seeing the same patients over and over and over again. And I hear oftentimes, people complaining about the low cost payers in their practice. So let's look at this from a financial perspective. The long-term financial benefits of adopting new technology, they're there, right? I brought in an IPL into my practice. I had seen a need for this technology for my patients. I had a list of patients that I knew needed this technology. My patients have already been taught that we look for technology to solve our problems, and they've trusted me to know that when we bring something in, it's been vetted and well researched. In fact, we, read 30, 40 papers on IPL before we brought it in. So I knew where it was going to fit, and I knew who it was going to fit for, and I knew what to expect from it. We paid off our IPL, as you've probably heard on other OI shows, within about 3 to 4 months. We had a total payment of, overall what we paid for the IPL device. We had made that. And then additional revenue anywhere beyond that is just, money to then invest into other technologies or to help your bottom line. So they will pay for themselves. Those new technologies can really help you get a higher patient satisfaction. And I think that's a really important component of bringing in new innovation and new technologies is the long-term financial benefit will be there. This device isn't going to maybe pay for itself within 3 or 6 months, but I really think they should pay for themselves within a year. And how are you going to do that? Now, there are devices or innovations or technologies you bring in which, may not pay for themselves. Let's say, a diagnostic device that doesn't have a high recoup rate. But if let's say a dry eye diagnostic device, it doesn't have a high payment for the device, does it help you with your conversions of other things that you're doing? Say meibography, converting you to more patients with meibography or to thermal pulsation or LipiFlow. And I found that to be the case. Like, I could show my patients and give them better patient education. And when they're better educated, they're more likely to move towards procedures that cost them a little bit more money. So was the investment into that type of technology worth it? Yes, it didn't itself pay for itself, but a secondary treatment that I did more of helped pay for that primary diagnostic device. So the other thing is that the enhanced service will lead to higher patient retention. And we know that patients who are new to your office initially will give you a spike, but it costs a lot to get those patients into the office. You can look at this in the other industries as customer acquisition. What does it cost you to get a new patient? Once a patient is in the office, they learn to trust you. You bringing new things up to them is more likely to be the case. And then I always say, how do we find ways or barriers for the patients who are just coming to us because because of our price? How do we find barriers so that maybe they go see somebody else who's maybe a lower cost person and they're not going to convert on any of the treatments or recommendations that we give, right? We want to be providing care at a certain level for our patients. And if our patients are not choosing that higher level of care, then maybe we're not the right office for them. There may be other clinics that can provide better care for them at the level that they want. I don't want to lower my level of care to meet those patients. I want to be raising my level of care for the patients that are appreciative of the level of care that we provide. And that may be outside the realm of their insurance. It may be their insurance doesn't pay as high for them. But for those people that truly, truly want it, even if they're, not able to afford it, we'll find a way for them. But then there's other people who can afford it and they're just choosing not to move forward with those better treatments for it. A synonymous thing, a similar type of scenario would be if I diagnose somebody with glaucoma and I put them on a medication, but they say, you know what, no, thank you, I'm not interested in that. I'm helping you with something. You're not choosing to take that. That's a difficult thing for me. If I see somebody with a dry eye condition and I have help
for them and they choose not to move forward with it, I struggle with that, similar to a glaucoma patient. Or if a parent is not choosing to move forward with myopia management, then I struggle with that, right? How do we convert more of those patients? There are other doctors who may want to spend their time just doing, the foundational sort of care, whereas in our office we want to provide that additional care. So how do we bring in new technologies which can streamline workflow, right? That's another big one. Is the technology that you're bringing in something that you can smoothly move into your practice, or are you going to have to alter the type of care that you're doing? And that certainly is oftentimes the case with innovations, is they do disrupt things. They may disrupt your flow. So do you need to bring a patient back for an additional appointment, or are they able to fit into your current workflow? Are you able to work up a patient doing mybography as part of their normal workflow? Are you able to bring in an OCT screener and add that to your workflow on every single patient? Usually that means you have to give up something else somewhere along the line to be able to do that. And we were doing some special testing on a patient, on every one of our patients, as an elective thing that we chose to do. And we decided, you know what, it'd be better if we replaced that in our comprehensive exams with a different type of screening, because it would help more patients. Now we're losing something because we can't do everything on patients. At every single appointment, but we gained something that was more beneficial to patients. And that's one way on an innovation, is are you able to make something else be better for them? So I bring up this is one of the ways that we can really hone down and save our patients, our practices, excuse me, on moving from busier to better, is for the patients who are not valuing what you do, is how do you create a barrier for them? And one of those may be is that you reduce the number of insurance companies that you take in your practice. So go to your overall practice census of all the patients that you're taking. Look for the insurance companies that are the lowest paying, and start looking at the ones that have the smallest number of patients. And if you take the low paying insurance companies that you only see, 10 or 20 or 30 of them, and you decide not to take that insurance, it's just opened the door for less administration, because it's a lower paying insurance and it's an additional insurance type that your team has to deal with. And then you start taking those lower paying, and you still have an option of private pay for those people, but you're helping to move those people over into maybe somebody else's office who would love to see them because they're not busy enough. Right. And so that moves and it opens up more time in your schedule. Now, naturally, what tends to happen is your schedule will then fill up with additional encounters, because now you've got an opening for additional eye exams or contact lens checks. But you have to be very purposeful to start filling those spots before those spots are even open. And what that means is that you're starting to look at patients and say, you need to do myopia management, or you need to do dry eye, or you need to do whatever it is, and schedule those patients back for an additional appointment. And that's what I mean, is you can't fit everything in to your existing workflow. It brings up the question of, where does that money come from, and what do you need to be charging for patients? So I like to run my office based off of a revenue per encounter. So what I do is, at the end of every month, we take the total dollars in revenue that we received, and we divide that by the total number of encounters that we saw, not by patients, not by refractions, but the total number of encounters. So if I saw a patient one, two, three, four times, I don't count them as revenue per patient as being one patient. I take that total patient and I take that four times that I saw them, and that goes into the encounters. So just the number of spots on your schedule that you saw every day added up. You don't count the ones that were empty. And that's going to give you a number. And that number is probably going to be somewhere between $200 and $600. And if you fill another spot for a patient with a new service, you need to make sure that the revenue that you're generating from that new service is at the high end of your revenue per encounter. You don't want to bring your revenue per encounter down by bringing things in. Now, let's say you have eliminated the top three lowest paying insurances in your practice. Inevitably, in the coming 1, 2, or 3 months after those insurance companies are gone, your revenue per encounter will be higher even if you don't see as many encounters. You may make the same dollar amount seeing fewer patients, and or you may have the revenue per encounter be higher because those lower paying insurance companies are not there, or those lower paying patients are not there. So that works out to be a benefit to you, opening your schedule from being busier to now opening opportunities for you to be better. And I know this sounds easy to do, but it's not. It's going to take time. It's going to be something where, within your insurance contracts, you need to look at them, but it may be 90 days that you give them. It may be 120 days, depending on the insurance. You need to look at that and say, if we cancel this insurance, what is its impact going to be? And maybe you're hesitant to do it. And so you only do one insurance company at a time and start dropping them as your time goes along. You drop one and it's going okay, and then you drop another. And this could take you 2 or 3 years, but starting now, the old proverb of when is the best time to plant a tree? Well, that was 20 years ago. But when's the second best time is today. So doing this today will benefit you 3, 6, 9, or 12 months from now, and it'll open up those doors. And your revenue per encounter will start going up, even if you don't introduce a new innovation or a new technology. So let's go forwards to now you've implemented a new innovation, and you're going to see a patient at a global fee 5 times. Let's say your revenue per encounter is, let's say for the sake of argument, is $300. And this global service, this dry eye encounters that you're going to see is going to be 5 visits. Well, the simplest way to come up with the lowest amount that you would charge the patient would be the number of encounters that you're going to see, 5 times the revenue per encounter that you make, which is 300. So you would do $1,500 for that patient for that service or product or whatever it is that you're doing. That would be the lowest that you charge. And then I think that there's a premium that you add to that because it's a service that other people do not provide that you may add on to that. But a relatively easy basic math of where you start that service is at the low end of your revenue per encounter. And then you may want to bump that up as time goes on. The other thing that I think so many people struggle with is how do I implement this with my staff, this new innovation and this new technology? I really recommend that you bring in the innovation and the technology in a way that your team is the one who leads that innovation. I'm a big fan of having coordinators in your office that are the champions of that. So let's say you want to bring in myopia management. You develop a myopia coordinator, and for the preceding 1 or 2 or 3 months before you start doing myopia management heavily, you have that person really invested. All along, what you're doing in the exam room is you see somebody with myopia issues and you say, hey, I think this is a problem. We have a myopia management clinic that is getting up and going in a couple of months. So and so is the lead on this. We're going to have that person write down your name, and we're going to get a hold of you. So you're planting the seed with them as you're bringing in this new innovation, this new technology. And then 3 months from now or whenever it is, you have that patient scheduled on the office and you're ready to go. You don't have to have every single question answered before you put the patient on the list. You just have them on the list. And then in the 1 or 2 or 3 months before this is really up and going, you're meeting as the clinician or the practice lead, you're meeting with that coordinator and you're going through the clinical benefits, how you're going to be operating in the practice, what does the finances look like, and you're working with them to establish it. So there is an owner of that service in your office other than you. It may be that you're bringing an IPL And you're going to have somebody else doing the IPL in your office, whether it's an associate doctor or whether it's you're in a state where a master esthetician can do it, or you're in a state where just a general technician can do it. And you're working with that person in your office to be setting that system up, the paperwork, the billing, all of those sort of things. You're working with a coordinator in your office so that you don't have to be the only one owning it. And then it's that person who's getting the rest of the team on board. It doesn't have to be you, but you need that champion, that coordinator. And that may be somebody that you have to hire. It may not be somebody that's on your team right now, and you need to bring that person in. And what this whole system does is if you look at yourself over the course of a 5-year period, by bringing in those additional innovations, those additional technologies, what it's going to do is it's going to make your practice better. It's going to make your patient outcomes better because you're always innovating. You're on the front line of new things. You're not a laggard that's sitting behind. I recently did some consulting with a office of a practitioner. She's 55, and she was like, you know what? I'm retiring in 5 or 6 or 7 years. Do I have the capacity to bring in a new technology and a new innovation? I'm the only doctor here. Maybe I'll sell my practice someday. I don't know, but is it worth it financially? And she just worked with me, and we worked over the course of about 3 or 6 months, working to say, okay, let's start you up from scratch. How do we go from 0 to 100, and where you're treating multiple patients a week? And and it takes time to get there. But she realized that after a year of not doing it, she would be 1 year closer to retirement, and her practice would be the same as it is today, if not worse, because those patients looking for innovation would have left. So, enough said on this, but I really think that the important aspect of us is going from no to go. You have to say, we're going to do this. Set a timeline. Write out the timeline while you're in your lunch break of, I'm going to be doing myopia management by January of this coming year, by June of this coming year. I'm going to be doing myopia management. We're going to buy an IPL. We're going to be bringing thermal pulsation. We're going to start a vision therapy clinic. Whatever it may be that your practice is needing, and you're too busy to not do it right now, set a timeline for when you can get this going and go from no to let's go. And to doing so will make your patients better. It'll make you enjoy your practice better. It'll make your outcomes for patients better. And it'll generate additional revenue, making you more enjoying the work that you do. Remember, there's always going to be people who are not wanting to pay for the service that you're doing. And there's always going to be somebody who would be happy to see those patients. But for you, you may need to be the one who is innovating and driving towards better outcomes and better patients. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Hopefully it was enjoyable. Hopefully you found a tidbit or two that you can apply. Make sure to like and subscribe, share this episode with somebody else, and we'll see you next time on The OI Show.
Thanks again, friends, for joining us for this episode. Again, thanks to Team for their support of this episode. If you're considering or have ever considered getting a virtual team member for your practice, check out hireteam.com. That's HIRETEEM.com. Mention the OI show when signing up, or hit the link below for a $250 discount off of your first month's team member.